SpongeBob has been through a lot of changes over the years, not all of them bad. Its diverse cast, broad comedy, and long time on the air have all contributed to the show needing to regenerate every now and again. For instance, we can focus more on some characters than others this season. We can tell more of these sorts of jokes. It's no surprise that fans of the series can be divided on how well these refreshed takes on the show work. I feel like the new crew should have got their groove together by this point, but SpongeBob is still only getting worse. Yeah, I don't hate Season 6 as much as others. I think it has its fair share of gems. Then there are the middling episodes, ones I like but others don't, ones I hate but others don't. I think we can pin the credit or blame for the show's rockier ups and downs in recent memory to one episode. The first to be made after the SpongeBob SquarePants movie in 2004, and the first where creator Steven Hillenburg wasn't involved. Fear of a Krabby Patty. Now here's the thing. Almost everyone can agree that this is a good episode, if not a great one. And I do, this will be a positive review of it. But I want to point out its role as a transitional episode of the franchise. Due to the impact production of the movie had on the show, it having to stop for 2 years, there was a shake-up in the show's staff when Season 4 went underway in 2004. Steven Hillenburg felt he'd done everything he could for SpongeBob, and let writer Paul Tibbitt take the helm as showrunner. Similarly, the show's creative director, Derek Drymon, was replaced by Ren and Stimpy alumni Vincent Waller, who holds the position to this day. So, if you want to know why the show's humor became less gag-based and more off-color in the late 2000s, you now know the answer. The fourth season premiere, Fear of a Krabby Patty's writers were men who'd been around from the start, however, Paul Tibbitt and C.H. Greenblatt, who left shortly into season 4 to work on Chowder. And you can tell from the look and feel of this episode that he was getting that show's feel together. This episode couldn't have been made in the first 3 seasons. It's got an energy to it that didn't quite feel right, but that didn't matter given its horror undertones. I don't understand it when fans say some season 4 episodes feel like they're from season 3. I feel like 4 had a distinct punch to it from the start, partially due to this episode's influence. But that said, what is it about? Our story begins at the Krusty Krab, where Mr. Krabs is trying to lengthen the place's business hours, much to Squidward's dismay and SpongeBob's enthusiasm, since he has no life outside of the Krusty Krab, not counting Patrick, Sandy, or needing to feed Gary. When the Chum Bucket raises their hours all the way up to 23, Krabs goes all the way and declares the Krusty Krab will stay open 24 hours. This isn't the first time we've been through this song and dance.
Please hit me as hard as you can.
But it's revealed Plankton was conducting a plan to keep the restaurant open forever, so SpongeBob's mind will crack and he can get the Krabby Patty secret formula out of it. It's always neat when he tries psychologically charged plans, since they tend to get further than the ones with brute force. A couple days pass, and Squidward and Mr. Krabs start to get tired, but SpongeBob stays happy with his now endless job. So Plankton adds more to his scheme and orders 10,000 Krabby Patties through the phone that Mr. Krabs listens to.
Wait a minute, this isn't some kind of prank, is it?
No.
Man, you know he's not all there when he can't even recognize his arch-enemy's voice. And with that, the best montage in SpongeBob history kicks in, as SpongeBob gets more exhausted over the coming days and weeks, and Plankton anticipates his eventual snap, which happens on day 43, when all his patties start turning into gunk, and this starts to happen.
Boy, I'm worried that... Got it?
Now let me offer this as a rebuttal.
Yeah, SpongeBob starts seeing giant killer Krabby Patties everywhere, and screams all the while. I think it best to admit here that I don't mind SpongeBob's vocal change in the post-movie era as much as others. I can still recognize it and empathize with it.
The greatest novelty shop in Bikini Bottom. All the greatest pranksters shop here. Couldn't we get to work earlier than 6 a.m.? Like 5:30 a.m.? Or 5 a.m.? Or 4 a.m.?
And the 2-year gap between 3 and 4's voice recordings was bridged by the video games and movies, so it's a more seamless evolution when you remember those.
I make myself a snack, but there's no time! I just wanted to say I'll be thanking you in my managerial acceptance speech today.
But yeah, the screaming in this isn't too bad. I can tolerate it since he's going nuts, and some extreme reactions are vital in conveying that. But when he's screaming while pinching himself at the start...
Ow! Ow!
No, that's far less excusable, it's just annoying there. So while Krabs is looking into Sponge's mental state and Squidward's completely out for the rest of the episode, they get a letter from a therapist, Dr. Peter Langton, who specializes in patty-related phobias. But would you look at that, it's Plankton in disguise, not that SpongeBob's able to tell. I can excuse that a little more than Krabs' continued blindness to Plankton's scheme. I mean, Peter's the same guy who ordered those 10,000 patties, you idiot.
What was that name again? Peter Langton.
Now with SpongeBob unhinged, Plankton's scheme is going perfectly, but then he realized that when SpongeBob's not in a right state of mind, he's still SpongeBob through and through. Getting him to close his eyes only makes him destructive.
Where'd you get that piano?
He doesn't have it in him to arrange ingredient cards in any shape other than a piano, and hypnosis just knocks him out entirely. But, while on a
snooze cruise, I guess,
SpongeBob dreams that he's out jellyfishing, then captured by a patty. Then he wakes up in his bed, a patty comes closer to him, then just talks to him and gives him some food and chocolate milk to calm him down. With that, SpongeBob and Krabby Patties are friends again, and in real life, SpongeBob's nice and rested and ready to get back to work, leaving Plankton and his scheme unfulfilled. If I could describe this episode's plot, it'd hinge on polar opposites. It's very wild and goes a lot of different places, but at the same time, what you see is what you get. Only the Krusty Krab and Chum Bucket are visited, apart from Jellyfish Fields in SpongeBob's bedroom, which are only in his dream, and that's how the season needed to be, starting off simple. The more you think about how Patrick feels about this or whatever, the less fun you have watching it. It's a crazy plot, but a simple one. This odd couple blend continues into the episode's sense of humor, which is pretty low-key verbally. A well they keep going back to is one character suggesting something and SpongeBob loosely connecting that to something else.
Maybe you should see a professional.
Wrestler?
Let's start with a simple exercise.
Jumping jacks?
I'm forced to resort to my most powerful method of curing you.
Fiber?
Plankton tries to take advantage of this habit he picks up by getting him to list ingredients through it.
Potato.
Potato.
Tomato.
Tomato.
But one that sticks out to me is a more blatant pop culture reference than Hillenburg or Dryman may have wanted. In this case, to E.T.
I'll always be with you, right here.
In my heart?
Actually, in your arteries.
The visual humor of Fear of a Krabby Patty is also a little stranger than what you're used to from the first 3 seasons, and that's saying something. As the Krusty crew gets more tired, they look it too, and you get a close-up of Squidward's eyes, which have bags under their bags. Another eye-related visual gag that freaked me out more growing up was SpongeBob closing his eyelids so hard that they tear like paper. It's nothing outright grotesque, but it sets a certain precedent for the next decade of the show.
Okay, fine, stay.
The rest of the animation is fine. I've said before that Season 4 has my favorite art style of the show, but you can tell they were still getting their bearings back and maybe didn't even have a new model sheet for SpongeBob yet. Evidently, sometimes around this point they'd go back to the Season 2 and 3 model. But this just makes his wacky faces all the more expressive and fantastic. Again, kudos to C.H. Greenblatt for storyboard directing this one, and Zeus Service for drawing the faces up. He should deserve some more positive recognition. But animation schmanimation. This was the first time we'd seen new television material from these characters in 13 months, counting early DVD releases. How are they holding up? SpongeBob isn't holding up so hot, actually. He starts the episode off completely eager and full of beans. Pre-movie episodes would have given him at least one thing to be worried about, or tone it down so he's more normal. But Fear of a Krabby Patty doesn't. He's not a very reliable protagonist until he starts going insane, ironically because he doesn't change much. Mr. Krabs, though more than happy to push his employees to exhaustion for money, which isn't even brought up here, is a fairly entertaining character, most likely being an outlet for the writers to vent their frustrations with having to continue the series at. The more time goes on, the more it makes sense that Mr. Krabs is a stand-in for a Nickelodeon executive. But Plankton really steals the show here. He's his diabolical hand-killing self for the first half, but in the second, when he's playing Dr. Peter Langton, he really shines through, getting fed up with SpongeBob before long, and really pushing to get the secret formula out of him. His therapist get-up adds to the weirdness, and he delivers my favorite joke of the episode, yelling to SpongeBob that he's still sick because therapy doesn't work. Squidward's role, I think, could have been larger. He's just there to complain about getting overworked, then to get overworked. Karen also appears for a very small joke, but it's another highlight.
I'll get him to tell me the secret Krabby Patty formula! Why aren't you laughing?
I've heard this joke before.
And that's what I have to say about Fear of a Krabby Patty, an episode that isn't perfect by any means, but is an entertaining romp with some funny jokes and memorable moments. It's not as good as half of SpongeBob's pre-movie output, and I don't think of it as being among the best of Season 4, but it was an indicator that the show had to move forward. Just compare it to the Season 3 finale Pranks-A-Lot, an episode I like, but understand it's a sign that the show would run dry if the Hillenburg-Dryman style went on for years and years. SpongeBob changed forever on May 6, 2005, and while it changed for the worse over time, the post-movie era of the show got off to a solid start.
No, it's a lie! Therapy doesn't really work! You're still sick!